Hey guys, welcome to ABO Outfitter Podcast episode number 2. Super jacked up to have Mike Wilson in the shop today. We're gonna chat fishing. We're gonna chat a little fishing. We're gonna chat a little more fishing, and then we're gonna get to the Ocho buck. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back. We got Mike Wilson, like I said, in the house. Couldn't be more excited to have you here. I also have Andrew Murray sitting right next to me. He's going to co-host, and we're going to dive in the mind of a guy that has zero social media, which is pretty hard to come by.
Unheard of.
I asked Mike before we started the show, I said, Mike, what's your social channels? He goes, I don't have social channels, so it's maybe by the end of the show we'll have him talked into maybe a Facebook page or something like that.
Up.
Yeah.
But hey, welcome, Mike.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm pretty honored to be here, to say the least. This is a cool deal for sure.
Awesome. Well, we'll just do some house cleaning stuff. Just make sure when you chat, we just chat right into the mic, and then we'll have you super clean your audio because we don't want to miss a beat, especially when we get into the details of the Ocho buck, which is really cool. But just for everybody who's here and listening, why don't you kind of just tell everybody who you are and where you're from and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Mike Wilson. I live and reside right now in Fort Frances, Ontario. Originally born and raised in International Falls, Minnesota. So I'm a Minnesota boy, just like these guys. Grew up hunting and fishing with both my grandpas. I remember when I was super young, doing the old Minnesota buck hunts with my dad, uncles. I've been tournament fishing since I think I was 10 or 11, Northwestern Ontario, Minnesota kind of thing. Used to come up here back in the day. And I've guided here and there for certain groups and myself. Just love the outdoors and love the passion.
That's awesome.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I've gotten to know Mike, over the years because of our passion for hockey.
Yeah.
Starting at a very young age, and that's what kind of fueled our passion to get together. And then as we've gotten older and started to grow in our passion for the outdoors, that's how you and I have hooked up and made things happen up
It
north.
actually started like way late too, like you said, when we were older. We never once talked hunting or fishing, and it's kind of funny because where your family hunts in Minnesota, not too far, was where I was hunting with my grandparents just down the same stretch of dirt road, and we kind of never really tied it together that we both loved the outdoors. It was always hockey this, hockey that, and I grew up with his brother. We're the same age, and now we don't even talk hockey anymore, really. It's all
well, we mix it up once a year.
We do.
We play a little men's league.
Yeah, we do.
We play a little men's league
Try
up in
still.
the falls.
Yeah.
And we get to show everybody that we still got it.
Which we do still have it, by the way. We do.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, speaking of that, we just had a little men's league hockey. Andrew and I play in the same team, and Mike was sitting on the bench chomping at the bit because he didn't have a skates or a stick. So you could see the competitiveness.
Somebody forgot to mention to bring my stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Came down, so.
Yeah.
We're trying to compete against these 25-year-olds that are stinking fast.
Yeah.
It was good hockey to watch, to be honest. Like you said, I was chomping at the bit, but it was fun to like sit back and just watch.
Yeah.
I don't get to do that too much anymore. So
tries to keep us young.
Yeah. Screaming on the bench.
That's right.
Well, Andrew, I think we should dive a little bit. Thanks, Mike. I can't wait to really dive into your mind when it comes to fishing up north and everything else. And like I said, we're gonna really dive into your mind when it comes to the story about this animal, because it's truly a fun, emotional story, I would imagine, for you. And I think the viewers are going to be super intrigued when you share the details about it. But Andrew, we should probably just chat about ABO Outfitters just a bit and talk about recent trips and plans and what we got going on, and maybe talk a little ice conditions, ice report around Brainerd Lakes and all
Yeah,
around.
that's right.
You live on a lake just west of here. How's that looking?
Yeah, it's been really tough so far this year, and I think you've probably seen that reflected in our social media. We have just not been able to get out that much this year. We knew the antlers were going to fall. Sorry about that if you're watching. We just knew that was going to happen. They're just so massive. Yeah, we just have not been able to get out and really attack the lakes this year. It's been tough. Really early we had ice form, and we had kind of a big storm that blew in here to the Brainerd Lakes. We got like 15 inches of snow. The slush came up with the ice, and it just hasn't really recovered since. So it's really bad. A lot of slush pockets out there still, and just a lot of snow. It's going to be tough to get around this year.
Yeah, it's just the nature of ice fishing, and
Yeah.
and looking at Lake Mille Lacs, that's been it's been a challenge, but it sounds like snowmobile access is pretty good.
Yeah.
And they're starting to plow roads, so we got big trucks headed out that way. Red Lake, we've heard mixed reports, but they have big fish houses and trucks out there in Lake of the Woods. Who we're going to talk with Jean Paul Tessier, probably in our next episode here, and he'll give us the full lowdown. But it sounds like things are happening down there. It's not, they might be dealing with a little bit of dirty water from the big blow right before it froze. So it's important to pay attention to those details and everything else. But I know personally, I think Mille Lacs is on my radar. I'd like to get out there and really target some walleyes, and then I have a few of my like little lover panfish lakes that I want to go hit, but they're covered in tons of snow, so it's just challenging. It's what it is. So
Yeah.
so maybe a good thing for the fish. Let them rest a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's fish to be had for sure, and fishing to be had, ice fishing to be had. You just have to be aware of the conditions and everything else.
Yeah, definitely, be safe going out around here. And I know a few people have been asking us just as far as, content and when things are coming up. And like Jeff said, I think he's got a few things planned. You'll be able to check that out at Jeff Anderson Fishing to see some of that content he's got coming out. And then for us at ABO, I think we'll be popping around to the lakes here and hopefully see some content from us coming on there soon too. So.
Yeah, I have some really sweet muskie footage that I've been working on. I can't wait to share it. But
that's always
fun
to see.
I do have a seminar down in the Twin Cities next week. I think the 14th for the Minnesota Muskie Inc. chapter. It's always fun to go see those guys. They're just hardcore muskie anglers, and we're gonna show some muskie footage to them and just chat muskie fishing. So
good. That'll be fun.
All right, let's get into ice fishing north of the border. Mike, you got tons of experience up there. I've seen you catch some giant crappies and everything else.
I think the ice report's pretty much the same as up here. Like, ice was beautiful conditions, those first couple weeks of winter. Everything hardened up awesome. Tons of people were mobile, getting out there, with sleds and whatnot. And now with this huge dump of snow we got, we're dealing with slush conditions and all of that, right? I have yet to hear of anybody driving trucks on like Rainy Lake or any of the smaller lakes around. I know snowmobile traffic is safe. I'd still take caution. I wouldn't take my word for it. I haven't been out yet. So, but just be safe, I know I have friends that are catching fish and big fish. So things are going off. Trout opener just opened up in Canada. And, the normal YouTube shows of people going up to Canada, and I know you like to get up in there every now and then and go fish, and people are icing some trout, so get out there, just be safe.
Yeah, Gavin, my son Gavin and I, he once hockey season's done, we're gonna go on a lake trout trip.
It's super fun.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't get that fighting like you're a big toothy critter guy, and you drive for that peel, so it's good. Yeah, fishing.
They're a fun fish to chase. I mean, when they show up on the graph and you see these vapor trails, they just cover so much distance, and then when they eat it, they just put slack line in your rod, and it's as good as it gets.
Yeah, and it's a super fun thing for kids too. If the weather's nice and everything, which you can never count on the weather in Canada, like anywhere, I guess, up here. But when you can get those perfectly good weather days, you bring the kids along, it could be a blast for them. Memorable for sure.
Mike, I know you chase a lot of fish through the ice and open water, but one of the more interesting things that I see for you doing, at least for ice fishing, is smallies through the ice. and I've seen a couple of episodes you've been a part of where you guys have done really well smallie fishing. So talk a little bit about that and when you target those fish and what's your tactic for catching smallies through the ice.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's actually like you said, the streamline of trout coming up. It's almost like they're a mini trout. Like when you get on a big school of smallies through the ice, it's like crappie action. It's nonstop. They're usually like pretty good in size, and you have to cover a lot of water though. They're very structure orientated when it comes to fishing them through the ice. We usually start where we catch them in the fall. That's where we'll start to look. We'll lay waypoints on our boat graphs, and we'll transfer them over to our units, our winter units, and we'll start from there. And then you kind of just do your grids through the ice. And we've had our best luck with plastics, actually, believe it or not. Like small crappie stuff, you kind of move up into like the little 1/8 ounce jigs with a 3-inch bait of some sort. I know on Rainy, one of our main forage is a smelt, so anything that looks like a little minnow profile works pretty good. But if you don't catch anything within the first 15 minutes, we're usually drilling more holes, and it can be a blast. The time for you can really catch them anytime. They're not moving anywhere. They're
Really?
not traveling yet. They're not traveling very far at all. It can be fun. It can be super rewarding when you find a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And like you said, we've filmed a couple episodes out there doing it, and they've been big fish for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you typically find them in like a basin type mud off a structure type thing?
Yep, main lake basins off of your main lake points. You have your deeper basins or whatever, and then you gotta know where your boulder piles are. Right, they're never very far from those boulder piles at all. We've actually done underwater footage where you can see the smallies literally laying on top of a boulder just waiting for something to swim by. Like they don't move very far. You have to drill, like I said, you have to drill a bunch of holes to do it, but once you find them, you put the smack on them for sure.
Do you find them to be just as aggressive in the winter as they are? Obviously all fish transition a little bit through the seasons, but that's been one thing with bass fishing in general through the ice is it can be a little bit more challenging in the wintertime. So
yeah, and we try to stress a lot too, like we like to keep the population good, right? Like fish care, fish health. We try not to fish them deeper than 20, 25 feet. Once you start getting deeper into those basins, it's hard on the fish when you bring them up. Some people bring them up faster than other people. If you haven't done it, you're excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So fish care is like super important to us or whoever does it. The fight of the fish is the same. They pull, they'll strip drag. Like we've caught 4 and 5 pounders through the ice. And
so fun.
Yeah, it's a blast, but you just got to be careful with them and, try stay into that mid-range depth to find them, and you will find them.
Yeah.
Just drill your holes and go have fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's always been a bucket list thing for me on Mille Lacs is to try to find some giant schools out there, and it's a challenge out there. I've had a few buddies that have stumbled upon them, but I've caught them on Lake of the Woods, but I've actually, it's unique that you talk about catching them, moving the bait, but I've actually found the most success when we've targeted them on Lake of the Woods is actually having contact with the bottom on those. Not only dead sticking, but having that jig on the bottom and they come and eat it down like crayfish, and it may be just whatever forage is there,
Right.
But yeah, that's a tremendous fish to chase.
It is, and even the 2 pounders, one, it doesn't really matter. They're all fighting. It's a bass. That's what they're known for.
Yeah,
and it can be a blast. But Mille Lacs would be, oh my gosh, that'd be so much fun. If you could find the
mother
big,
load.
Yeah, if you could find the big pods of them, it could be lights out.
Yeah. Yep.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
So speaking about bass fishing, kind of transition a little bit into some open water stuff, because another thing that you like to do a lot is bass fishing tournaments. And first of all, just because you're a Falls guy, I'm a Falls guy as well. And I grew up, trolling Lindy rig setups pretty much my whole life for walleyes. So I'm curious what brought you into the passion for bass fishing, and then how that led to tournaments and everything else.
It probably all started with my dad. Really, he's been fishing tournaments for a long time. actually well known in Minnesota and Canada. He's won some of the biggest open team tournaments there are. He's won the Kenora Bass International Tournament. He's actually last year's International Falls Bass champion last
those are
year.
big tournaments.
Yeah, some of the biggest open team tournaments around here, other than the Champions Tour, which is held all over Minnesota, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my passion was fueled by him, and then I signed up for Bassmaster magazine, and I started reading a lot, and it just flung from there. We signed up for a few smaller tournaments, my dad and I. We used to fish the Team Supreme circuit, like we were talking, it was just a little circuit, like kind of like a Thursday nighter league kind of thing. And we would literally travel from the falls. We would travel a couple hours down this area, no pre-fishing or nothing, and we would just go just to learn something. Like for us, when we first started, was all about learning, listening to the dock talk and everything you could kind of take in. And then we just started fishing on Rainy, and we put our luck in the hat in the Fort Frances Canadian Bass Championship, and we do pretty well there, and it kind of just grew from there,
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And obviously I fish Rainy Lake a lot, mostly for walleyes, and most people that go up there for summer adventures or just sport fishing in general or chasing walleyes. You guys have a ton of success with smallie fishing, which anybody who catches a smallie open water knows it's one of the most fun fish pound for pound to reel in. So tell us a little bit about your strategy, what you're willing to give away anyway, and how you chase those critters.
For me now, like knowing what I've learned over the years, I think it comes to, like, I'm sure Jeff can attest to any of this. It's all about your seasonal movements, right? So you go from ice out, they're still going to be in those main lake basins where you're catching them from the ice, and the sheet leaves and you go out there in a boat, and it's all slow fishing, tubes and little swim baits, stuff like that. And for me, like when I talk to people about bass fishing, it doesn't have to be difficult. You can go out on any lake that has bass in it, and it's easy to catch them if you have some of the right equipment. You don't need the most expensive stuff or anything like that. You can literally fill a little tackle box full of a couple swim baits and tubes and stuff like that. It's all about the seasonal movements, where they're going to be at during the certain times of year, and then just a couple of key forage baits. Like if you knew that your home lake had perch in it, well, I would say pick up a little 3-inch swim bait and a jerk bait and go to town. Something where you can cover water and look for rocks or weeds or a mixture of both. Usually if you can find a mixture of both, they're gonna be around there for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know from my experience, growing up fishing walleyes, it was always a situation where I would be trolling, through a walleye pot and then come up onto some rocks or something, and all of a sudden you'd pick up a smallie. And I think when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate it as much because we were trying to fish for walleyes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now, as I've gotten older and I have Mille Lacs just in my backyard over here, man, I really just love the passion for chasing those fish and targeting them specifically. And I'm talking about smallies. I know you're big largemouth fisherman too, but boy, it's a fun fish to go out there and attack when you get the bug for it.
Yeah, I'd say, like, if I could pick one of the two bass, it would definitely be a smallie, just because of where I'm located. We have to travel a bit to catch largemouth. I mean, they're in Rainy Lake. They're tough to find.
They are.
They're in there. I actually, last year for the High Falls Bass Tournament, I actually weighed in a 3-pound largie on our first day, which is, I've never actually caught one in a tournament on Rainy Lake. So it was kind of a big deal to me, as a bass guy. But if we're going to go and catch largemouth, it's going to be on Lake of the Woods or Pelican or more down this way, right?
Yeah.
But if, like Mille Lacs, like you say, I dream of spending a weekend on a lake like Mille Lacs or any of those. And it's kind of funny because growing up, you hear of all these secret lakes and and Mille Lacs kind of just has been let out of the hat here the last 5 or 6 years now. And they had a couple big events out there, and
right.
I don't think you can go out there on a weekend and the boat ramps aren't packed, so
It's pretty busy.
It's fun to see that, though. I mean, I could see from a local standpoint, it might get kind of hard to see all that, but it really is good for the communities and all that. And as long as you're keeping the, your habitat safe and they have all those laws in place for all the fish and stuff like that, I think it's a good thing to have people coming and checking it out. I love seeing new people on Rainy Lake and this and that, as long as they're following everything and taking care of the fishery, then that's what they're out there for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In your opinion, does Rainy get the pressure that Lake of the Woods does?
For bass?
Just for fishing in general. Yeah.
I have a few friends that guide on Rainy strictly. I think they do very well. I know that for sure. Lake of the Woods is so much bigger. I think Lake of the Woods is sectioned off more. So you have like your American few resorts that are in the bay there. I think they're super busy. And then you get down and onto the Canadian resorts who are also super busy. I think both lakes though, I think their main fish still is walleye. I mean, sure. Rainy Lake is turned in my opinion, into a trophy walleye lake. I'm sure Lake of the Woods is right there, if not better. I think the numbers on Lake of the Woods are probably better for eater size and all the way up through the chain. It's hard to go out on Rainy Lake and catch nice. For me anyways, I fish more on the Canadian side than I do on the American side. But I think to catch a nice limit of eaters is super hard on the Canadian side. There's some beautiful trophy fish to be had up there, and it's a wonderful lake. I see a lot of people out there, but I don't know if it's not crazy busy. You can go to any one of the ramps any day of the week and always have a spot usually. So
that's nice.
Maybe it's still undercover to some people.
Yeah.
Have you ever fished muskies out there?
I have never targeted muskies. I have a few friends who target muskies, more up in like the Red Gut Bay, Seine River area. They're more kind of on that end. I have me and a buddy, Eric Olson, won a tournament up in the Seine River a few years back, a bass tournament. And on day 2, it was like we had to be in like 15 minutes. And I hooked into a mid 40s muskie. And I've caught a few like hammer handle muskies in my, like nothing to be super pumped about. And I actually caught it on a bass topwater bait, and it crushed it. And Eric, being the muskie nut that he is, made me get this fish in the boat, measure it, take pictures, and we were almost late
in a derby.
That
you're winning.
That we won.
Yeah.
We were almost late. We had like 2.5 minutes. Wow. By the time we got back.
That's kind of close on a 40-minute boat ride, right?
And I was just like, man, like, was that worth it? And he's like, Wilson, it was so worth it.
I got to beat this guy.
Yeah, you would love him. I mean, they do get into the musky fishing hard. I've never been a toothy critter guy because like the whole figure 8 thing, it boggles my mind that there's fish down there that big. Like some of the muskies that you bring in and I see on the internet and stuff, I have goosebumps right now because I can just picture like you not seeing anything and then boom, there's this huge shark of a fish following you. And it's just awesome. Like, usually I'm like, holy crap, and pulling the lure out of the water and whatnot. But
yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I think if I did it maybe with like a seasoned person like yourself once or twice and kind of watched how everything was done, I think maybe I could. But that's just a whole nother expense. Like my wife would kill me with the baits. Like,
yeah,
you know.
I know. I keep on getting asked to go turkey hunting, and I'm just like,
yeah.
That's just it. Like, yeah, like I'm a whitetail hunter, and I do the occasional moose stuff. But like, I've never duck hunted. I'm not a duck or a goose guy really at all. And my wife, like every now and then, she's like, "How come you don't go with the buddies? You know, go." I'm like, Sandy, like decoys and new camo and all of this stuff. Like it's a whole, you can't just throw stuff on and go out there. Like you have to play the part a bit, you know?
Yeah. And you're not the type of personality to do it kind of half ass. It's more,
no, I'd want to win. I want to sling lead, you know?
Yeah. Geared up.
Yeah. I need to be geared up. I need to bring a sack of decoys with me and whatnot. So
I'm the same way. So I have to be very careful. And for some reason there's 24 hours in the day 10 years ago, and there's still 24 hours in the day now. I wish that they made more time, but
Yeah.
Right.
there's just not.
And then you have kids and everything, and that changes everything. So I try to just keep things simple and just simple. I'm super OCD when it comes to things. Andrew can attest for a lot of the deer hunting OCD stuff, and
Yeah.
I just, man, it's just like I just have to have everything like scheduled out
So true.
and in line, and
Yep.
I think we're all built that way. I think a lot of success comes from the details, right? And we talked about Andrew's buck in our first episode, and really I was just mind blown by the details that went into harvesting that animal. So
oh yeah, he was calling me every now and then. Like I couldn't believe, I was kind of on Isaac's side when he said the 10% deal. I kind of gave Andrew 20 because I know his grit. I knew being in Minnesota too. I kind of understand. I'm spoiled in Canada, I think, compared to what goes on in Minnesota and just the land and how it all lays out. And it's very hard to shoot a deer like Andrew did, and he brought it to my place, and I was jealous. I was like, man, that is
Yeah.
once in a lifetime deer. I actually told him, I'm like, you realize that we might never even top this in Canada? And he looked at me and he said, yes, we will. So
Yeah. That's the next goal, right? That's
Yeah.
what's fun about it.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a perfect transition.
Yeah.
Nice work, fellas, to start the story about the Ocho buck. And if you're not watching on YouTube right now, if you're just listening, we have the buck here on the camera, and it is just a massive mainframe 8-pointer that Mike killed this year. And I'm just excited. I'm excited for Mike because I've been fortunate to hunt with him the last 2 years up there, and I'm super excited for all of you guys to to hear Mike's story, because I got the text videos from Mike, which I have not shared to our social media yet, but will be a part of it, and it was a pretty cool experience. So to start it off, we called it Ocho. So tell a little bit of a background about what the name of the buck is and why that name came up. And
I actually think you and I
changed it
to Ocho, which it kind of went from, this kind of goes back to our hockey roots. I think I named him Ovi
Yep.
to start, like after Alexander Ovechkin, who was number 8.
Yep.
We kind of went that route for a bit, and then for some reason we just kept saying Ocho, so it kind of just
Yep.
stuck with that. Like Andrew said in the last podcast, he's not really a buck namer kind of guy. I'm not either, but
Yeah.
when it comes to like the bigger deer that I'm kind of watching or whatever, like there's a few that I get every year. You kind of have to name them so you remember them, and you keep your tabs on your computer of these deer, and you have to name them so you can just click right. So Ocho kind of stuck, and he's been a deer that, I mean, I'm gonna be real. I haven't spent a ton of time hunting. I did do a ton of scouting. I've always put trail cameras in this specific area, and I've had pictures of him since 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a 2-year-old then,
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't believe what he looked like back then compared to now. You could definitely tell it was him, but he exploded. I can't really describe how non-excited I was to like get into it, because last year I was done pretty quick with a deer, and I kind of just kept tabs on him and kept checking cameras, and it was kind of funny because he actually grew a bit from last year.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely did. I mean, just in terms of mass.
Yep.
And, when you're looking at a deer through trail camera, I talked about this in our first podcast. It's really hard, I think, to gauge size in terms of mass and overall size, just in terms of scoreable inches. And this was definitely the case, I think, with this deer where, we knew that he was a great, mainframe 8-pointer, but man, until you had it on the ground, and not even when you had it on the ground, because you took some pictures of him.
Yeah.
But then I came up and I saw you, and you had the rack with you, and I got it in my hands, and it was just like, Wow.
Well, yeah, the pictures change everything because it got dark on us. I waited for the boys to come out with my wife, and
Yep.
and I had another buddy who was hunting on property that he had permission on not far away.
Yep.
So I waited for him too, and yeah, the pictures. I mean, they're good pictures. Thank you, Sandy, for
Yeah.
a great picture and whatnot. But
Easy now.
they could have been a bit
Easy
better.
now.
They could have been a bit better. It got super cold too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. It was tough.
But
So go ahead.
the boys, where I had to wait for my boys to get out there and
Yeah.
and whole. I mean, just like how
Yep.
pumped up they were to see your deer too.
Yep.
And
Absolutely. So okay, so I wanna kind of back up a little bit because I think that a huge part of the story with this buck and with all of the deer that you kill up there is with the trail camera pictures. So talk a little bit about this area that you found this deer in and trail cameras and kind of where you placed them and et cetera.
yeah, this was actually the first property that I started hunting this certain chunk. I'm not sure how many acres it is. It's a good chunk. It's both sides. It's a big property. And what caught my attention was the ag that was on each side of it. So there's cut cornfields that are on the opposite side of it every year. I guess it would be the east side. And actually on the property, there's two big fields right in the middle of it,
Right.
joined by all this bedding. There's oaks and stuff in there and whatnot, but it just had my attention right away. It was pretty easy access. There was kind of already some stuff that was there before. There was a road that I could access, and a few trails that I worked on over the years now. And this is actually I think this is the third buck over 150 inches I've taken off of it.
Off of that property.
Off of just that property.
Yeah.
And
Incredible.
it just has super good genes. This year, I think and I'm not lying, I think there was 10 on the low end, 10 different bucks that are all over, like that are 2 years to 4 years. And out of those 10, there's probably 4 that are pushing 140, if not over 140 inches already.
Yeah.
And they're still super young.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but going back to this deer, at a super young age, he wasn't on that property a ton. I know people who live farther down that would see this deer and would get pictures of him and whatnot. And over the years now that I've been hunting there, we kind of talk and, hey, have you seen that deer this year and this and that? And it's I can't believe he made it all these years. And
Yeah.
it's really crazy because from a person I talked to last year, they were seeing him miles away on a different property. And remember how hard it was last year with the trail cam pictures to really dial him in last year. I'd say I hunted him last year harder
Yeah.
than I did this year.
Yep.
And last year kind of discouraged me because of how sneaky he was. Like he would be on the property for 2 or 3 days and then he'd be gone.
Yeah.
So
I think that as somebody that is a whitetail hunter and grew up hunting in northern Minnesota, just literally across the river, approximately from where you're hunting now, the thing that is the most challenging setup about finding deer and pursuing a specific deer in this area is that you're dealing with such a huge ratio of woods or bush, as Mike refers to
bush,
it,
yeah.
compared with ag or just general funnels or openings. You don't have that natural flow
of both.
of that. There's not that pinpoint funnel that you can look at and say, all right, well, I know that there's an ag field here and this deer is going to transition through this area to this spot, right?
Yep.
And one of the most unique things about hunting in Ontario and Canada in general, compared with what a lot of us Minnesota hunters have, is that you can bait. You can bait there, and I think that's obviously it's a big factor for bringing deer in, but really what that does is kind of help to create that transition, right?
Yeah.
Create that funnel, and that's really how you decided to set up trail cameras too.
Yeah, it was a huge change for me coming from Minnesota with none of that. You you can do your certain things up to a certain point of the season, and then you have to stop.
Yep.
Coming into Canada, I actually had to get a bunch of information from friends, like, you know, what do you do? What's the easiest way to do it? What's the right way to do things and all that. And my cousin Jeff, who was also a big buck hunter, he's passed away now, but he had it dialed, and he helped me out a ton. That's kind of my later years of learning how to find these deer was mainly from him. I mean, I know there's bait haters out there, and that I think I've lived in Canada now for 11 years, and there's maybe like a 2-year gap in there where I didn't shoot something because I wanted it to grow. I think one time I've shot a deer within 10 or 15 yards of a bait pile.
Right.
This deer this year, Ocho, that I shot was probably a mile
Right.
away from a bait pile.
Right. Yeah.
For me, a bait pile is inventory. I get to see, you know, how many sets of does are in the area. I get to see the bucks that are traveling, and also just directional, which way a buck is constantly coming in. You know, you'd be surprised at, especially this one, always would come in certain ways, day compared to night. Like he was different, and that's kind of how I ended up shooting him this year. Was a light bulb just went off in my brain and was like, man, you are missing this. And it's kind of funny because Andrew was pushing me to, like, Wills, you know, just think like you're missing one little piece of this deer. And like Andrew's deer, he had to be super go-getter, right? You only had a window before you had other hunts and before rifle hunters came in and this and that. For me, it's just me out there pretty much. So I've never wanted to bump deer or push deer, and I kind of just wait for that perfect window when I start getting daytime pictures, and then I'll put some. I don't even put up stands until that perfect moment.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
that's one thing I've noticed is you'll wait till you get that buck in that area that you want to see him, and then you'll go and you'll get set up.
Yep.
And-
Once I get like a pattern going with baiting, or I've never been a guy who baits every day. I think that's silly. I've never been a guy who puts out 700,000 pounds of corn or whatever. You just get enough out there to get your inventory. And then I keep it on a schedule. I'll have, 4 stands that I'll do this day, and then come another 4 days, I'll do those other 4 stands and whatnot. I always try to stay on the trail. And if I can, I'll always use a 4-wheeler.
Yep.
I feel with a 4-wheeler, they're inclined to that noise through cars and whatnot that are close by. They're not getting snuck up on by a person walking in or a tree breaking or whatnot, right? So
Yeah.
I think a 4-wheeler helps you in more ways than you think when you're doing that kind of stuff. For me, anyways.
Yeah. We've noticed that, right? I mean, we've gone in and checked
This
the
year.
camera and baited a spot, and I've been filming you, and we'll come back into that spot, and there's already deer.
There's
coming
deer
back
there.
out. Yeah. So it's obviously for them, it's kind of a comfortable, a thing that they're more comfortable with,
Yep.
which is always something that's interesting.
It's a
for me.
bonus, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, going back, at least for me, I mean, you knew that this deer was around, right? But there was other target bucks kind of ahead of this buck, as you said, 3 other deer that you've killed on this property. So last year, I think, was the first year where it was pretty obvious that this was a buck that if you found him, if the chance came, you would want to shoot it. And that was the first year that I was up, and my good friend Isaac was also up last
Yep.
year, and we saw pictures of him, and it was just kind of, we were both like, wow, that's a great deer. But last year,
ended
correct
up
me if
shooting-
I'm wrong, no daytime pictures of
Not
Ocho.
even last year. His whole career
Yeah,
as a whitetail, I never got one daytime picture.
right.
And I mean, that you can go back and say that's probably my fault. I could have done 10 trail cameras on this property and really zoned it down to where he was sneaking through a peephole, about an inch wide. But the areas that I could kill him in, there was nothing else I could have done coverage wise to get pictures of him
Yeah.
on the property lines anyways, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think what this situation compared with what I talked about in our previous podcast where I'm hunting public ground and I had to put up cameras to be aggressive, this is a situation where it's property. You're really probably one of only 2 hunters out there.
Yeah.
You have a situation where you don't really want to interfere beyond what your small hunting area is, because you don't know again, you look at a snapshot of this area on a map and the deer could be anywhere. So you don't want to wander off and just start plopping cameras up all over and possibly risk bumping them out of there.
And it comes back to like the proof's in the pudding. Like something's working out to where if I just take my time, let it play out, sooner or later, the only reason he made a mistake is because it was the rut.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd probably say out of all the deer on my wall, I think all of them but one have all been killed in the rut.
Yeah.
One of them was killed super late in the season, but other than that, they don't use their head, and they don't think, and they don't play the wind at all that time of year, and they just make mistakes.
Yep, absolutely.
I want to get down to the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to hear the story of this thing from maybe the sleep before when you went to bed, what you were thinking, like all the details, and then leading all the way up until the shot.
Actually, the sleep before, Mr. Murray was still sleeping at my house. He was tagged out.
Yeah.
And we were hoping to catch one of the other target bucks that for some reason, gnarly, thick, doesn't matter how many, it could be a spike buck, but if they're just gnarly and off the chain, different than your average whitetail, I'm all in. And that's kind of the deer that's still out there, still alive. He just had my radar for some reason. And even Andrew was like, man, you're crazy. But
yeah. I was just thinking that in my mind, man, you're crazy knowing that thing's walking.
But
around.
This other one, and Andrew can attest for, is a beautiful deer, and I'm glad he lived because now next year we get to see. But Andrew was still at the house. We had sat that morning before you left. We were sitting for this deer, and he was just playing cat and mouse with us. He was showing up at 7:00 at night, 8:00 at night. He just was not making the right moves in daylight hours. So I told Andrew, I said, I'm gonna go back home. You're gonna pack up and you're gonna leave, and I'm gonna sit down and I don't know what I'm gonna do. And he's like, what do you mean you don't know what you're gonna do? And I said, I don't know. I was excited for Andrew. That was my main goal this year, was to get him a big bruiser Canadian buck that he wanted to get, and we got it. It played out. It couldn't have been any more perfect how his deer played out.
Yep.
So he left, and I looked at Sandy and I said, okay, my buddy AJ was with me, and he hunts some property that he has permission on, which is not very far away at all. So me and AJ got in the truck, and I said, okay, I'm going to drop you off, and I'm just going to go check some trail cameras and go from there. My plan was to go sit where Andrew and I sat for this other deer, which we actually nicknamed the Wizard, just because he's a wizard. We have no clue where he goes and what he does, and he covers so much area, and he's everywhere. So I dropped AJ off, and I went into the first spot. So on this specific property, I had 2 trail cameras, which are probably a mile apart, I would say. And everything runs east-west on this property, especially the deer. Yeah, I mean, they go in bed. They can't go south because the river's right there. I'm right on the river edge pretty much. So it kind of works in my favor that it's pretty easy to dictate which way I got to go, right? And I went in and checked the first trail camera, and the first trail camera is on the edge of the property from like the property that I hunt to somebody else's property. And he had been there in the middle of the night a couple times, maybe once in the daytime, like just strolling through. And that was about it. And this was within like how many days were you down? 5 days or something like that?
Yeah.
So, and I never checked those cameras that whole 5 days he was down, and probably prior to that. So that deer really didn't go through that area, which is crazy to us, because years prior, that section of the land is where he lived, which we thought. And he was moving back and forth, and I was just like, maybe he's gone, or maybe he got shot or whatnot. So I moved back down the other way and checked my other trail camera, and he had been there early in the morning, like 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m., and I think it was getting light at 7 or something like that. But he was never coming back through the camera so he would come in on those mornings, but he would never come back through the trail camera those evenings. So like I said, the light bulb just came off in my head, and I'm just like, I wonder if he's near those joining back fields. So the east side of this property, I think it's east, right? Yeah. The east side of this property is all bush. No ag fields until you get a couple miles down where all that standing corn is and stuff. And to the west on our property, there's 2 humongous joining fields that are connected by like a peninsula. And one section of the field runs north-south, and then you turn and there's 2 fields that run east-west. So I've just, in my mind, I'm like, I wonder if he's stuck down in those fields chasing does. And now I'm running out of time. It's like, it was 3 o'clock when I started to go check these trail cameras, and it's dark at 5. So instead of going and sitting for that other buck like I was going to do, I said, screw it, and I'm just going to go. I do have a stand out in the middle of one of these fields. There's one singular, humongous, gnarly old oak tree. It looks like it's 600 years old. I have a stand up in there.
Cool.
I've had it in there for a few years. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to take it was more like an observation kind of thing. I just wanted to go out there and see if I could see a buck running does, and that would kind of give me the idea that, okay, yeah, he's chasing does, he's somewhere, I got to figure it out. So I went and parked the truck on the access road, and I got out and instantly got out of the truck and noticed that I had a perfect south wind. And if I was sitting in any one of my stands, that would be like the worst wind I ever wanted, especially farther down where I checked the first trail camera. I have a blind down there. It'd be blowing into everything. But walking in, it was the best thing I could have ever asked for. They had no idea. There was no way they could smell me. There was no way anything. So I got the gun loaded up and I started walking out, and I was actually, there's a road that cuts the first set of fields, and I was right out in the open, and there was a doe coming across the field, and she looked at me. And I was like, well, there's no way she's going to smell me. So I'm just going to stand here and kind of like slowly just kind of waddle. Maybe she'll think I'm another deer. And it's exactly what she would look up at me and she would feed. And I got within like 25 yards of this deer.
Crazy.
And finally she just kind of looked at me and just slowly walked off. She never flagged or nothing. And by that time I'm like, man, that's goofy. And I looked about 100 yards south, and there in the first little fields, which is like overgrown alfalfa with whatever kind of farm hay or that grows out there, but there's still alfalfa that grows out there. There was probably 6 or 7 deer that were all feeding out there. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to do what I just did with 6 deer standing out there,
Yeah.
So they had no clue I was there. I could visually see them from a long distance. So I cut across the field where the doe came from, and I actually kind of like army crawled, because now I'm kind of like, in my head, I'm a hot shot, I'm just gonna be cool and not get seen by any of these deer and whatnot. And so I cut across this field and I just trickled along the bush edge. And when I got to a certain point, the deer could, if they looked up, they could see me. And I did this all slow, but time, I'm losing time now, right? I still want to observe those other 2 big fields, which I still have to get to, which are another 100 yards away. So I'm just slowly watching the deer, and all of the deer were feeding the same way, which I noticed there was no deer that were going the opposite way, which would be towards that stand and that trail camera. So I'm like, well, this is odd. And there's a peninsula that comes out that separates this field from those two big fields. And all those deer were feeding to that peninsula, which has dropped acorns, tons of them. And by the time I shimmied my way, I got in on the bush edge and I shimmied my way, all those deer had worked their way into that peninsula and they disappeared. So I got on the opposite side of them and I sat on the edge of those two big fields and I just got on my knees and I just waited for them to come out. And as I was watching that, a doe and 2 fawns, which kind of, it hurt my feelings a bit because this time of year, usually when there's fawns with does, it's not good. Usually, like if the rut's kicking off and a doe's and estrus and everything, they'll completely kick those fawns away. What I look for, anyways. And they were kind of feeding, and she kept looking up to where those deer should be coming out of. And I was more thinking that a deer would come out from the big side of the fields, right? Like you've been there, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But I thought something was going to run across the field closer to dark and just be bolting to where those does were. But he was hung up in that peninsula.
No way. That whole time?
The whole time. So like where those 6 deer were all feeding, he was already inside that peninsula. When I walked through, he was still inside that peninsula. I don't know if he was bedded in there, but I mean, I'm guessing he was in there for the acorns, and he must have had a hot doe or 2 that he was tending and didn't want to let them go. But so I just kept my eyes on the doe and 2 fawns that were working their way towards all these deer that were in this peninsula. And I looked behind me to see if anything was coming out, and I looked in front of me, and a little spike buck had walked out of that peninsula. So I was like, okay, they're going to start working their way out. So then I looked again. I just kept, glassing the edge of this field, because from where I was sitting to the far edge of the field is like 250 yards. That's how big these fields are. And I looked back, and I just saw this monster body deer, and his head was down at first, but there was another deer out there within that split second. I was like, oh, that's another deer. And I thought maybe it was one of those bucks that we had on camera, and I was excited. And he picked up his head and he looked straight at me. He looked down into the corner that I was sitting. He had no clue I was there.
Never forget that moment, I bet.
No, because I can just see him like picking up his head, and I didn't even need my binoculars, and he was for sure 200 plus yards away.
Did you know it was him at that moment?
Instantly.
Yeah.
I have never went from my knees to my stomach so fast in my entire life. So I was on my knees, and I went to my stomach, and I'm laying on the ground. And I knew it was him. I knew I was gonna try shoot him and whatnot. And actually, I was so jacked up that I was shaking so bad. And I'm like, Wilson, you need to crawl your way closer. It doesn't matter how close you can get, but crawl a bit to, calm yourself down, but get closer for a better shot. So I crawled.
How much light did you have left at this point?
Quite a bit, because when I ended up shooting him and made the little crazy adrenaline video and everything, it was still really light out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But it disappeared fast. It was pretty clear out.
Yeah. Okay.
But I crawled my way, and I looked up again, and he just kept looking into the corner. I don't know if he expected deer to kind of come out, or if that was just his line of sight, how he was feeding. He didn't care about the does that were out in the field or anything, or he wasn't really looking. And it was just crazy to me, because the wind is howling from the south, it would be from his backside. Like, he had no care in the world. Like, he couldn't smell anything coming from that way. And he just kept feeding, and I was crawling, and I stopped finally, and I put my gun up, and I was like, okay, you're not shaking as bad anymore. And it was just a clear line of sight, and it wasn't the best positioning of a deer, I would say, to shoot if you're not used to shooting certain ways. He was kind of looking at me, but quartered away from me. So my initial shot was I'm going to shoot him right below the neck, and I'm 100% going to clip lungs and whatnot. And I've made that shot before plenty of times, and the deer just, they buckle right up. So, and it was a big target for me because he was so big, like
Huge.
and
buck.
I was shaking so bad.
Yeah.
And I just gathered my composure and I let it rip, and he hit the snow so hard in that field that snow flew up. And
Jeez.
you know, I was like, holy crap, I did it. You know, like I've never seen this deer in the daytime, and I did it. And I looked, and he just did not want to give up. He got up and he started running across the field. So I let one go, and I missed. I was short. I could see snow fly, and I was like, okay, bring it up a bit. And I let another one whistle, and I slid him probably, 10 yards. He was just face first sliding.
Down goes the monarch.
Yeah, it's not even over from there. So from there, I got up and I ran across the field. There's a strip of, it's like this wide. There's a strip of like little timber that connects these two fields, right? And I ran to that strip and I just watched him. And I mean, he was kind of like, he was dying for sure. And I knew he was down, but I did not want him getting across that field because it is just thick stuff.
Right.
And so I just gained my composure, and I made a little video for the boys, and I was so amped up. And actually in the video, I filmed myself and I was going to show you guys the deer. And at that point, you kind of see me lift my binoculars up. He tried to get up one last time, and that was it. That was all he had. He tried to get up one last time, and he just, that was it. That's where he laid.
And then I got the phone call, and it
Yeah.
was just pure emotion, the video. And actually, when you called me, I thought you had shot the wizard, and no, you told me the one that you hadn't really been chasing because of the trail camera pictures the whole year, and then boom.
I couldn't believe it. Just
Ocho
how
was down.
majestic he looked when he came out, and
Ugh.
he was everything. I think it's the biggest body deer I've ever shot. He looked like a cow, like he had been eating corn of those fields, and he was so jacked. I never even touched him, actually. I was so jacked up. I never lifted his head up. I never touched him until Sandy and the boys came, and I let Kalen actually grab his antlers first and pick him up. And
Wow.
yeah,
There it is.
It's as
The
good as it
Ocho
gets.
buck.
Give us the details on him. What does he score? And
he went 166 inches gross.
Unbelievable. I mean,
yeah.
anybody that hunts whitetail that just have a pure mainframe 8. I mean, he's got, maybe an inch here on gross, but to have an 8-pointer score that
yeah,
is just
unreal.
unbelievable. I mean, he's got over a 26-inch main beam on
Yeah,
his right
that's where
side,
a lot of the score came from,
5.5-inch
was his-
bases. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Those brow tines. I've never.
It's like a 9-inch brow
I've
tine
never
on this
seen
right
brow
side.
tines like that.
That's
in my
just
life
crazy.
On a deer, and
Really cool, Mike.
Yeah,
Awesome.
congratulations.
Thank you, boys.
You know, one of my favorite parts of the whole story, and I can correlate this to muskie fishing, is that moment when you made that decision where, all right, screw it, I'm gonna go for him. Many times throughout the season, you probably went for the antler one, whatever you called him. I forgot what the wizard.
Yeah.
But this time it was just different, and you can't teach instinct, but what you can teach is, if you have the opportunity, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for those opportunities.
And that's like we were saying, like when I called Andrew, I was like, man, do you realize like this would have never probably happened if you would have been here another night or two or whatnot. Like, yeah, maybe we would have said, okay, let's switch things up. Let's go check some different trail cameras. Let's let the whiz kind of sit around,
Yep.
give him a break. But realistically,
Yep.
I mean, I can say with certainty that I don't think I would have been out in that field with Andrew that night or anything, because we would have been doing something else. We would have been on an adventure doing something else. So it worked out pretty dang good, I guess.
It's such a fun story.
Well, and that's our goal here with outfitters in these podcasts, are really to share moments through fishing and through hunting and through whatever outdoor experience, and really dive into the mind, when it comes to harvesting something like that. And you talked about so many different variables, and we're short on time, and I'd love to go back through every single one, but you covered them really good. But the thing that stuck out to me most was that moment we said, all right, your instinct, you know, and you get that instinct by being out in the field and out in your elements and doing it a lot.
Yeah, you get that as a fisherman, right? A tournament angler, that you got to make those changes if you want to win. You got to make changes right now, yesterday.
Yeah, or make those decisions, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't, you
Yeah.
know. And the coolest thing is you just made that decision, and you make those decisions throughout your whole life and throughout your whole career as a angler or hunter, and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't, and you never really can predict when it can, but when it does, all the different variables that you can't predict, like Andrew being there and all those different things. It's so cool to relive that moment. So I really appreciate you sharing that with me.
Thank you, guys.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
So since we are short on time, our Own Your Moment submission part, we're just going to skip over that, Andrew.
I think that's a good call. We're still not
Product
quite
feature,
set up.
we'll talk about the Ice Helix, and we'll probably do that in a different segment. And again, this is our second episode, and as we're thinking here, we're gonna put timestamps with each of these things so we can stay on track. Isn't it crazy?
We can just
Well, I
look at
watched
what-
the first episode and I was like you guys were talking about time. I'm like, yeah, there's no way. Like
You go-
you guys were worried about time, and then now sitting in the seat, I feel like I've only been here for 15
Isn't it
minutes.
awesome? Well,
So,
when you love it and it's your passion, it's so easy. So
Intense.
talking about that, I want you. These are 3 common questions, and this is something that I always want to cover. Give me your favorite outdoor memory.
Man, there's a ton. I'd probably say my first tournament win with my dad. That kind of solidified the fishing and stuff for me, and to do it with him. And he won the I Falls Bass tournament last year, and we don't get to fish tournaments together that much now because we have established partners and this and that. And I remember him on stage last year saying, this was kind of a tournament I saved for us to win. And it was just as much of a win for me as it was for him. I don't think he knows that.
Yeah.
But I was super proud of him. But that's probably one of my biggest memories as a kid I can think of. And it's totally off topic of hunting. But
Well,
tournament
really.
win really gets you going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where your
fishing
roots
and-
come from.
Yeah.
I think for all the dads out there and moms listening, like the impact we have on our kids, it's important to take that trip.
Absolutely.
I'm in the grind of hockey and figure skating and everything else, and it's so easy. I could say I'm not going to take Gavin on that lake trout trip, but I'm telling myself I got to make time for it. And like you said, those are memories, and those are my favorite memories growing up, are with my dad. So it's super cool. What product couldn't you live without?
Trail camera, hands down.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I watched last month or weeks or however long it was ago that you guys had your first podcast, but I wouldn't be able to harvest deer like this. I wouldn't be able to scout land. I'm an everyday average Joe. I still have a job. I work a week on, I'm off a week, and then I have children. I have a wife. So I have a life other than the outdoors. And trail cameras is just one of those things that I could not do without. It's just like a graph in your boat. I don't think I could go ice fishing without a Humminbird anymore.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, it would be fun, but when you can have one, when you can do it, I mean,
if I forget it, I just drive home.
yeah.
It's just not happening.
just the pictures you get and the scouting you get out of it. For me, like you said, I don't have social media. I'm a guy who likes to keep to my own. I only trust certain people, this and that. I like to do a lot of my own work, and trail cameras help me do that.
Yeah. for good reason you don't have social media. I'm looking at mine right now. I just got a message from a guy that asked me that if 15 years ago I shared spots with a certain individual on Lake of the Woods, and I was like, it's like schoolgirls gossiping. Come on, you guys, seriously? Did I share spots with or trade spots with somebody?
Just
Are
say,
you
yep.
kidding me? I just chuckle at it. But anyways, and we talked about this in our first episode. We are going to have people that have millions of followers on social media, and we're going to have people that don't have social media. And to me, some of the best fishermen I know are guys you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And you're one of them. And it's fun for me to hear and to pick your brain on these things and hear Andrea ask you these questions where I'm just like enamored by the details of what it takes to be successful. So with that, why don't you end and just give us what drives your outdoor passion? And if somebody's watching this, you know, what really drives you to get up in the morning and go do what you do?
I would say just the stories you gather throughout your life in the outdoors. It's with anything, a sport. Like, to me, I'm super competitive like Andrew is. I like to shoot the biggest buck. I like to catch the biggest bass and cash the biggest check. But also it's this right here, ABO. Like, this is new to me. This is new to you guys, and I'm super passionate about sharing whatever I have it is to share with you guys and with other people, my children. My children are some of your guys' biggest fans, and they watch your guys' stuff on YouTube and whatnot every day. They're literally hunting right now at the hotel
with their new
Remington Nerf guns. So it's just awesome. I think the people tied into the outdoors really gets me fired up. The stories, and just the drive to like learn from your experiences, I guess. I learned so much from this deer. I know I'm super lucky to have been able to harvest an animal like this. It's an animal of a lifetime. And I'll never forget these experiences for sure.
Well, thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you guys.
That's cool, Mike. I appreciate you, letting ABO come up and be a part of your stuff in Canada.
Absolutely.
And, you're a stud of a guy. You're a stud of a hunter, stud of an angler, and it's been super fun to have you on.
Thank you.
Yeah. For Andrew Murray, for Joe in the background, for Matt sitting in his office, and for Mike, no social media, Wilson, I'm Jeff Anderson. That's ABO Outfitters Podcast, episode number 2. Thanks for watching.
Woo.
Sick.
Nice work.